Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is day 2 of the first event of 2022 at Sam Rayburn. This is actually day 2 or 3, however you want to look at it. The official day 2 was canceled due to heavy winds, just real dangerous weather. MLF did a really good job at making that decision and canceling that day. So the third day, what was going to be the third day turned out to be the second competition day. Everybody fished on that day, and then instead of cutting to the top 50 for the third day, because it was the final day, they cut to the top 10. So everybody fished on day 2 or 3, however you want to say it. And yeah, the first day, if you haven't seen that, I did the recap. Ended up having 10 pounds 10 ounces. Was extremely disappointed in that weight. Really, my goal was to reach, a minimum of like 12 and a half or 13 pounds, and I really thought that I was on that quality of fish. I thought that I had areas that could really get me to that benchmark. But unfortunately, sometimes the things that you really bank on just don't pan out. And I ended up making some bad decisions that first day. And so if you haven't seen that recap, go check that out. Just did it, posted it on Monday. So that is out there. But going into the second day of the tournament, I was pretty disappointed. Like I said, day 1 did not pan out, and a lot of the things that my plans A, B, and C just did not pan out. I ended up having one spot that I caught all of my fish. And one of the biggest challenges that we were going to have for the second day, because it was now on a Saturday, is that we had a huge high school event that was going out the same time, and then also local events that were going out on the same time. I think, I heard people say that there was about 600 tournament boats, not including the 159 boats of the Pro Circuit field, on Sam Rayburn. So I was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to get on that one primary area that I caught my limit on the first day. And so that was kind of weighing heavily on me, as I was getting ready to blast off. But ultimately, those kind of things are just out of my control. You really can't focus on those things that you can't control. And so, I really tried to remember that fact. And I always really try to be extremely positive. But I'll be honest, going into day 2, it was very, very hard to stay positive. And I knew this was going to be an event that I needed to survive. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. Let's start this video. Yeah, let's get this thing started. Let's talk about it. So right off the bat, the good thing was, once I made my run to my primary area, which was essentially a big point right outside of a major spawning bay, I got there and I was the only one. I was amazed because there was a lot of high school teams and local anglers that were pre-fishing that spot during my practice and also the first day. So I really thought that I'd have to contend with other anglers there, and I'd just have to move on. But fortunately, was able to get out there. I ended up starting the same way that I fished on day 1. Just went out there and started dragging a Carolina rig. Same setup, that 7.6 medium heavy all-purpose series rod. Here we are, hooked up right now. First fish. And this was really key for me, not just because it was the first fish, but, the first day I never got a bite over 3 pounds, which is really just solid gold in this type of low weight tournament. And this fish right here turned out to be just that. Man, I was pretty stoked at this point, because that was a 3.5 pounder, maybe even, I think it was a little bit more than 3.5 pounds. So, the first fish right off the bat is really putting me in a position where, I can get to that 12.5 pound mark, 13 pound mark that I really wanted to get to. And so I was pretty amped at this point. And as far as conditions go, you know, the first day was super sunny and fairly calm. The same goes for you know, the second day of competition. It was really sunny, pretty calm, but very, very cold. You know, so you can see right here, I'm starting to shed some layers because the sun's starting to warm me up. But man, that ride up there was cold. Putting my extra tufts on. If you guys have ever been to Alaska, you know that extra tufts are essentially what we call them is Alaskan sneakers. My favorite boots. Oh man, I love it. That bite, man, when you're not sure if you're gonna be catching a limit, every single bite just gets you. And this morning was really, really slow. That's one thing I forgot to mention, is that it took a long time to get that first bite, that 3.5 pounder. It took quite a long time. The first day that I fished this spot, it didn't take me long at all. It took me about 20 minutes to be able to catch a limit. And so I really expected to be able to duplicate that. And it was very apparent right off the bat that they weren't as grouped up either. On day one, they were just all in one cast, and here I really had to work the entire point, you know, the tip of it and the sides, and just really milk that area. All right, so this is a little bit later. On my Panoptics, so I got perspective mode and forward-facing sonar. I saw, you know, 3 stumps real close to each other. Decided to pick up the crankbait. It's Strike King 5XD. I watched it on the forward-facing sonar. You could see it on the screen, and I remember this cast. It was cool because I you know, cranked it right by one of those stumps, and I saw, you know, a fish right behind it, and stopped it just for a split second and got that fish. Oops. Fish was okay, everybody. He took a little bit of a spill, but he ended up just fine. Back to the Carolina rig. Again, the tackle I'm using here, 7.6 medium heavy or all-purpose series rod from Fitzgerald. I was using a 7.2 to 1 gear ratio FX8 reel, I believe. Yeah, and using 3/4 ounce weight, just standard Carolina rig, man, and a Hayabusa EWG, variety of baits. This one right here is a pretty small one. Squeaker. Had to put this one on the board and fan its tail, make it go. I really didn't want to keep this one. Oh, no, never mind. This one was one that was obviously over. My bad. You know, they don't look like much, but these 2-pounders, man, are solid gold. As long as you can catch some of those, you know, 2.5 to 3.5 pounders or more. Still on the C rig. Oh yeah, swing Gosh, catch up with him, man. I was using 20-pound test, a BrazeX mainline. Obviously, I like using a BrazeX because you know, you're dragging on the bottom. You're usually around hard bottom, you know, sharp objects. So 20-pound mainline, and then I put a 15-pound gold label fluorocarbon leader on there. The leader was probably about 3 feet. You know, I went anywhere from 2 foot to 3 foot. The shorter the better, because it's just easier to cast. Overall, I just like a shorter leader if I can afford it. I think this is the one that was right on the line. I believe this is the 3 stumps that I had found, that I caught one on a crankbait earlier. Put it on anchor mode. And this fish was another key fish for the day. You know, not a giant, but a really good solid 2.5 pounder. This was a really important fish for me. This culled up about a pound and some change, because you know, we had that one squeaker fish in there that was not even really a 1.5 pounds, and I really needed to get rid of that fish because I felt really uncomfortable about it. You know, if it shrank any in the live well, you know, it wouldn't have gone. So I was really glad to have gotten rid of that fish. All right, so that was pretty much the last fish on my Carolina rig spot. You know, I just pretty much fished that place out. And I was heading down lake. I was gonna fish, you know, something on the south end of the lake, but then there's this one point that I just kept on looking at, and or not point, but a pocket, and I just decided, man, do a U-turn, follow your gut, and just beelined it for that little pocket. And this pocket had quite a bit of wood in the water. You know, that was kind of a rarity on Sam Rayburn that week, is you know, water that actually had some substantial depth. And it looked from the main lake it had plenty, which it ended up having a lot. And so once I got in there, you know, it just looked so good for swim jig. And so once I got up in there, I pulled out my swim jig rod, and you know, at first I had black and blue on there, and I just, after a few casts, you know, with the sunny skies and everything, in the water, you know, clarity and color just didn't fit black and blue. And pretty quickly I decided to just go ahead and switch that out to a shad color, so more of a white coloration swim jig. And this is you know, a 3/8 ounce snakeheads swim jig from Z-Man. I mean, it's this only swim jig I use. I love using a 3/8 ounce. I mean, a lot of people use 1/4 ounce. I like a 3/8 ounce. I feel like I can control the depth, reel it a lot faster without it coming to the surface. So pulled out a white or pearl colored swim jig, the snakehead, and then one of my favorite trailers is using the brand new turbo fatties from Z-Man that I helped design. It's a swimming worm, and I trimmed that down and put that on the back of the swim jig. And man, let me tell you, it has a crazy good action with that that worm on the back. So just putting my graphs on standby mode. But yeah, made that switch, and it turned out to be a pretty good decision. Tying my San Diego jam knot, and the setup that I'm using for this 7'3" medium heavy Versus series rod, again that FX8 7.2 to 1, and I'm using 20 pound it was Red Label. I was using 20 pound Red Label Seagar fluorocarbon. I couldn't remember if it was a BrazeX or Red Label, but it was Red Label. Worked the back of that pocket, no bites, then came to this lay down. There we go, man. It was so cool. I saw that fish just come out of nowhere and hit it. Beautiful 2.5 pounder, exactly what I needed.
That's what we're talking about. On the swim jig. Oh. Number 2. See you, buddy. Thank you.
All right, that is pretty much my day. Those were the fish that I weighed in. I didn't cull anymore after that, but I did get on a pretty crazy swim jig bite at the end of the day. I mean, I ended up catching probably 8 more fish. And the reason why I switched to that swim jig and started running these pockets is because the sun was really warming things up. I mean, the water temperature was climbing. It probably climbed 3 or 4 degrees by the afternoon. I know I was stripping down, taking layers off, and so it just started to make sense. And so that's the reason why I started to switch gears a little bit and start covering water. It was a good decision. I did miss one between 3 and 4 pounds that I clearly saw. And just didn't get a hook in that fish, unfortunately. But overall, man, it was a lot better day. Obviously, most of the day was just me sitting in one spot and just grinding it out until I caught my limit. And then once I felt like the conditions were changing enough that I needed to try something different, that's when I ended up pulling the trigger on that and fishing the swim jig. So I made some good decisions. I can't say that I fished great in this tournament. I really didn't. I just pretty much survived it. This day I ended up catching 12.5 pounds, which actually climbed me up about 20 spots. I ended up finishing in 55th. Got a $10,000 check, which you really can't complain about that. Got some really good points and survived it. And that's exactly what I wanted to do, especially after day one. I was really irritated after day one, I'll be honest. And so to be able to grind out a solid limit and a solid finish, that's all I wanted. But anyways, that was Rayburn for me. That was the end of my event, and it was a good start. I haven't had in the 4 years fishing the pro circuit now. I've always started the season off with a check, so I'm glad to have done it here. And man, I cannot wait for the next time to go to Sam Rayburn. It really is a great fishery, and every single year I learn something new. So and this trip was no different. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you out on the water. The next event is gonna be the Toyota Series on Guntersville, and then the Harris Chain Pro Circuit right after that. So keep an eye out for these tournament breakdown videos. Thank you guys so much for the support. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. I'll say it again. It really gives me motivation to keep doing these videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week. So thank you guys very much. I'm going to see you out there on the water.